Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ingrid Sanchez, and I want to welcome you to our webinar on how to integrate Chloe, our artificial intelligence layer, with Zoho SalesIQ. To get started, I just want to give you a brief overview of how our system works and what the purpose behind it is, and then we could go ahead and dive a little bit deep into how the integration works with Zoho SalesIQ and what type of training is required for the system to be able to manage your customer service requests. So the main thing that we're trying to solve here is how repetitive human tasks can be. And this is why we created Chloe, our artificial intelligence self-service AI layer. And what she does is she simulates agents to answer customer requests. The way it works is that once we initiate the integration with Zoho SalesIQ, there's a process where all the previous chats that were received to SalesIQ, and in chats this means in reference to all the questions that have been received from your clients as well as the responses that have been sent out to them on behalf of the employees, we import this data and we use these chats from the last 4 months to train the system. If there's something that's unknown to her, and as soon as she starts receiving these requests from the clients and it's a unique request, what's going to happen is that she's going to seek assistance from an internal employee so that they could assist her with the response, and she can then serve that answer to the client and update her training. So there's self-learning involved, and it's a system that's constantly learning as new requests are received. You could use the system in two different ways. You could automate the process completely in the sense that Chloe would be the one to handle all the chats directly from SalesIQ. And the second option is to use her as a knowledge base in the sense that she would provide suggested responses to the employees. So every time a chat would come in, she would be able to provide them with suggested responses based on the training that's provided to her. And they could use this text to just edit, customize it, and then send it off to the client. There's a few unique features that Chloe has. Aside from automating the questions and customer service received through chat, she's also able to automate different actions. So for example, if there's an escalation that's needed, it's a type of task that we're able to replicate. Or if you would like to set up an appointment, or if you need to send a particular email through a notification, there's different types of actions that could be also automated. And this is something that could be completely customized as long as we're able to access this through the API. You can also train Chloe on sentiment. So in terms of sentiment, this is optional, but it's a really good feature to have. You'll be able to differentiate and identify in real time what type of customer service is being provided to clients, and in terms of if they're satisfied with the service or if they're even content with the service itself. And you could also evaluate the performance of how the employees are serving their answers to these customers by seeing if they're sticking to scripts, responding in a good manner, being polite with the customer. So it's always good metrics to be able to track in real time and identify where these issues are. Then the intents are the workflows that we create to train the system. These are decision trees, in other words, that we create based on the different use cases that we are able to obtain from the data that's imported to SalesIQ. And then here you could see the actions that I mentioned previously. So she could do escalations. We do work with unstructured data, and we do have a few other solutions available. You could always review all the other webinars that we have posted on our website, and you could see in detail the different types of solutions that Chloe has. Here are some use cases. You could use Chloe as an intelligent knowledge base to handle low-value customer service and sales requests. You could also use her to onboard clients, and it's not just the clients, but you could also use her as an internal training tool. And we have the assistive automation as well. In terms of technology, we work with policy graphs, and it's the graph that you see right here. Basically, what we do is we model the customer service or the brand messaging that the company is providing. What we do is we build this graphic using the internal communications that can come from phone calls, chats, emails, and we build this by using machine learning, and then we refine it by using natural language processing, and we're able to do the searches within the graph algorithms. Now, going a little bit more into detail with the SalesIQ implementation, this is a very simple setup. We also have some training documents available that give you the step-by-step instructions on how to complete the integration. So it's pretty simple, and this is what it looks like once you log into the SalesIQ platform. I'll show you what that looks like later on. But to give you an example of what the widget looks like, once it's, this is the automated service where Chloe would be the one that would handle the chats that are coming in from the customers. So once they initiate the chat with her, you'll be able to see the icon of Chloe responding. That icon can also be personalized on SalesIQ, so it could have any name that you seek fit. If it's set to be as suggested responses or a knowledge base for the employees, this is what the lookup would the setup would look like. The system is going to provide three different suggestions, and what the employees can do is they can pick the best one, and then they can just customize that chat and send it out to the customer. It makes the response a lot quicker because they don't have to go into different systems and search for the answers. So once you log into your SalesIQ account, in order to get the integration set up, you first have to go to the settings section in SalesIQ, click on the integrations, and you do a search here for Sundown. It doesn't come up as Chloe AI, it's as Sundown. Once you see the system, you go ahead and click on it, and it will give you the option to enable the integration. I already have it enabled here, but it would give you the option to enable the integration, and then once that's done, what's going to happen is you'll have to scroll down to the bottom part of the page and start training the system based on the previous chats that you've received on SalesIQ. So to do that, you click on where it says let Chloe train with previous chats, and this is going to prompt you to our user interface for you to create an account. It's recommended that you use the same email ID that you use on SalesIQ to create the user interface account on Chloe AI. Once you create the account, the import's going to start, and you'll receive 2 emails within this process. One email will be at the beginning of the integration, and then once that's complete, you'll receive a second email, and it'll give you detailed information of how many records and how many chats, how many messages were imported into the user interface. This is what our user interface looks like, and it's a really simple system to use, very user-friendly. Once you review the modules that we have on how to do the training on the user interface and you start interacting a little bit, you'll see that it's very easy to catch on to. At the beginning, it could be a little confusing. Once the integration is finalized and we receive that second email, our next step would be to log into the account, and then we go to the dialog section. Within the dialog section, we'll notice the chats that were imported. In this demo, I only have one chat, so you could only see one chain here. But if you were to have, let's say, 100 messages or 1,000 chats, they would all appear here, and the pages are laid out in to give you the vision of 5 chats, 10, 50, or 100 at a time. Once we have the chats imported, there's an initial training that's required for Chloe to understand what type of customer service is being provided to the clients and what type of responses need to be sent out based on the questions that are being received. So the best way to do this is to review the data. There's always it's always a good idea to review the chats, see if any of the responses that were previously sent aren't inaccurate, or they're not what you don't want those responses to be. So a good thing to do is once you start reviewing each chat one by one, and we do have a minimum requirement of what needs to be labeled for the system to learn on its own, and that's 1,000 messages. And when I say 1,000 messages, it doesn't mean 1,000 chats. It means that each message could have, for example, 5 different questions. So those all count as individual messages. So it's a good thing to review, as I was mentioning before, just to make sure that the dialogues are they meet your standards and the type of service that you want to be providing to your clients. So it's always good to double check that everything is accurate, that there isn't any mistakes, at least when it comes down to the responses that Chloe should be providing those clients. That's the first thing to do. The next step would be to click on where it says training. And in the training section, we're able to set up a few things in here. This is where we would add variables. The variables are used for when we need to do database lookups. For example, if you need to search for like an order number, if a client sends you a chat and says, what's the status of my order 3456, then the system would be able to recognize that order number and do a lookup based on the variables that we use to label them. The second thing would be the actions. Within the actions, this would be setting up, for example, if you need an escalation, if you want the system to escalate at a certain point in the chat, or if you want a notification to be sent out, this is where the actions would need to be configured. The intents are the workflows that I briefly described, and basically what we're doing here is on the use cases, we need to create the decision trees of how we want that conversation to flow. So I have a very simple demo here, but just to give you an idea of what this looks like. So I set up let me see, this is a five step intent based decision tree. So the very first part of it is, the start of the chat. They say, hi, I need some information on this. In this case, it's a demo inquiry. So they had a question regarding a demo. And that was my first intent that I set up because it's the client is specifically wanting to know, a question in reference to that demo. Then the next intent was name verification. At this point on this QA pair, what the system needs to do is verify the customer's name. And the next one would be ask them for their email address if it's needed, if it's a product inquiry. So you're pretty much just creating different decision trees. And this is going to vary depending on the different types of use cases that you may have. You have additional features, the text analytics, data sources. All of these can also be found on different webinars that we have, and it'll show you in detail how it is that these intents, variables, actions need to be set up and how they need to be labeled on the system. But this is just to give you an idea of the type of training that's required initially for you to start, for you to be able to enable the bot. So once we go through the training of the dialogues and we meet that minimum requirement of 1,000 messages, this button right here that says generate graph is gonna change colors. It's gonna be this green color that you see here, and it's gonna be clickable. So you'll be able to click on that in order to generate the graph, which is the graph that I was just showing you a few minutes ago regarding the intents. If for any reason, because we do also work with smaller companies, and these smaller companies don't always have large quantities of chats available. So in these cases, there is a workaround. And the workaround is just to create sample chats based on different use cases and build these decision trees or intent flows so that we could at least get a basic setup with the system. If for any reason you don't reach that minimum of 1,000 messages, since this button of the graph wouldn't be clickable, then what you would need to do is you would need to send us an email, and you need to go to the section that says here testing, and it will give you a dialogue ID. So this dialogue ID, you would need to email this to us at zoho@sundown.ai. And then once you email this to us, we'll be able to generate that graph for you so that you could enable your bot on SalesIQ. Part of the requirement for you to be able to enable the bot to go live on the system is that you run that graph and you complete the training. If that hasn't been completed, then you'll receive a message like the one I have right here displayed where it says, hey, I'm Chloe, I am yet to finish my training. So in this case, it won't let you enable the bot on your website. So make sure to contact us if you need assistance with that. Once the graph is generated, then the next step and final step would be to enable the bot on the website. And for us to do that, we click on websites, and then we go to the website where we are going to add the bot. You go to live chat widget, and then you have to click on the chat window configurations. You scroll down to where it says allow your bot to engage with visitors. Here SalesIQ gives you two different options. You could either disable her completely, so it would be none. Let bot answer all chats, which means she would manage all the chats that come in, or let bot answer when users are offline. So if you want to keep her just, for example, for like after hours and have your team manage all the chats within business hours, then you could set her to respond only when there's nobody available. Once that's set up, you'll be able to set her up on your website, and she'll be good to go. And that's pretty much it. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to send them over to me, and I'll give you a couple of minutes to send me that chat just in case anyone does have a question. So I just received a question saying to elaborate a little bit more on how to create the intents when there's little data available. Okay, perfect. So what we do in these cases is we do have a specific training module that gives you the step-by-steps on how to complete this, but I'll give you an overview of how it works. You could set up, for example, 3 to 5 different use cases, and you could use these use cases to define specific intent or decision trees. So, for example, if you're working in real estate and you want one use case to be when people are seeking to buy a property, a different one to be, when they want to sell a property, or when they're looking for a property, but it's related to business. So these are 3 different use cases, and they all have different outcomes. So what we would do is we could create samples based on the intents and add that to the system manually, so that you could use that as a basic setup for chat. And then as you start receiving more messages, then the system will continue to evolve. I hope that answers your question. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to send them my way. All right, seems like we're good to go. Nobody else has any more questions. So thank you everybody for joining us once again for our webinar on how to integrate Chloe AI with Zoho Sales IQ. I hope that this was helpful for you. And once again, if you need any assistance at any point with setting up your account or completing the integration, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you and have a great day.